It's Monday, April 20th, and this is now on HNN.
Open Hawaii for everybody.
More protests against stay-at-home orders are expected today as the nation's coronavirus deaths have nearly doubled. I'm Elise Preston in New York with new measures being taken this week to slow down COVID-19.
Officials say help is coming to ease Hawaii's historic unemployment claim backlog.
The plan is to have 1,000 people man that center.
Under a new rule in effect today, you are now required to wear a face mask in most public settings on Oahu.
Americans have been staying at home for weeks, but this household essential is still hard to find. I'm Naomi Ruckham with some unexpected reasons you might be running low on toilet paper.
And surprise! Loved ones hold a virtual wedding reception for 2 Oahu nurses on the front line of the pandemic. Coming up on This Is Now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for watching This Is Now. I'm Jonathan, your director producer, alongside Ashley, who has a brand new update from the Department of Health. Some promising numbers.
Right. Health officials are reporting just 4 new COVID-19 cases today, bringing the statewide total to 584. Of the new cases, it appears Maui and Big Island each have 2. Hawaii's death toll stands at 10, and 423 people have been released from isolation so far. Meanwhile, nearly 24 people rallied in a rolling caravan on Oahu yesterday, saying their rights are being violated by the government's emergency mandates.
Open Hawaii for everybody, because we are hurting more than we are hurting from the virus.
This should be getting better. We should be getting our rights back as we have more information, as we've got more time to supply our hospitals, but they keep taking rights away when we should be getting them back.
And right now everybody's just simply laying down, having all our rights taken away. This isn't about COVID-19. This is about our civil rights. There has been absolutely no process to take our rights away.
Protesters drove from the Kapolei Costco to the state capitol waving American flags. The orders require people to stay at home unless they're taking care of essential needs, and they must wear cloth masks when going into essential businesses. But those who turned out this weekend said the mandates are doing more harm than good. Protesters are asking lawmakers to take action to save Hawaii's economy and allow people back into the community.
At this point, more than 750,000 Americans have tested positive for coronavirus. And despite that increase in cases, those rallies that you just mentioned are happening all across the country. Elise Preston takes a look at that and some other top headlines making the news today.
Demonstrators in Pennsylvania rallied outside the State House in Harrisburg Monday to protest stay-at-home orders.
I'd rather be working. I really would, and I really wish they would open this up.
They follow similar protests across the U.S. over the weekend. The demonstrations come as cases of COVID-19 grow in rural parts of the country. The number of cases connected to the Smithfield meat processing plant in South Dakota is now just shy of 900. And 10 elderly patients at a healthcare facility in Minnesota died from the virus. At Western State Psychiatric Hospital in Washington, there have been 34 confirmed cases. A staff member tells CBS News the hospital isn't doing enough to stop the spread.
I do believe that there's going to be a lot of deaths.
Starting this week, New York will test 3,000 people for antibodies of the coronavirus at testing sites like this one. The governor hopes the sampling will give a clearer picture of how many New Yorkers might have been infected with COVID-19.
This has to be a multi-level government coordinative project.
New York's governor says the death toll in the last 24 hours is under 500 for the first time in weeks.
No patients in this hall at all.
New York emergency room doctor Matthew Bai took this video inside Mount Sinai, Queens. He says there are fewer cases, but patients arrive in worse condition.
It can be to the extreme where they have no pulse already, or they're coming in breathing really fast.
Still, there is reason for hope. Officials say discharges are up. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
Back here at home, state health officials believe the cluster of cases at Maui's largest hospital may have all started with a healthcare worker who went to work while sick. Investigators are looking at 3 more people tied to the hospital who may be infected. As of this weekend, 45 people, that's 29 staff and 16 patients, are linked to the Maui Memorial Cluster. We are told they're all in isolation now, and we talked to Mayor Mike Victorino this morning. Let's see what he had to say.
Well, what the county has done and continues to do is try to provide other PPEs or personal protective equipment that we made available to Maui Memorial Hospital. We gave them 6,000 surgical masks about 2 weeks ago. We have some N95 that just came in, and I met with Mike Rembus, the CEO, and we're discussing how we can distribute it to the IC and oncology departments, which seem to have had the biggest challenges with the coronavirus. So from the county's perspective, we're doing what we can. I know they brought in some experts from the mainland in epidemiology and other areas, and they're cleaning up and trying to, stem any more spread. But I think the key there is what happened a month ago has made it very difficult, because now we see the residual effect, just like what happened on the Big Island. When one spreads it, it continues to spread very rapidly until you get it under control.
Mayor, I got to ask you, you bring up the CEO, Mike Rembus from Maui Memorial, and he said that they had reported to the state that they had these cases, these positive cases, more than a month ago. Do you have any insight into what happened there and whether leadership should be changed either at the hospital or at the state level?
Well, I'm not privileged to the information as far as secondhand information, and just like you are getting reports after the fact. I don't know where blame lies, if there is such a thing called blame. Missteps were taken. I understand that has happened. And again, it was a learning curve. We were evolving from the middle of March to where we are today. We have done many things like social distancing, wearing masks. The good hygiene part already was kind of out there with the public. But we have seen changes in just the way we live. And so I don't know, could I just say, at this point, I reserve any comment as far as all the other part of the question is. I think we've learned from it, and we need not repeat it. I think that's what I'm trying to say. We know better now, so there's no excuse.
Meanwhile, on the Big Island, a third McDonald's location in Kona has been linked to a cluster of coronavirus cases. Health officials say one case has been linked to the McDonald's on the corner of Kuakini Highway and Kalani Street. That brings the total number of cases to 30. 18 are workers and 12 are relatives. All 3 locations are temporarily closed.
And this just in from the state capitol. There was a House hearing just wrapped up just minutes ago about the state's projected economic recovery, what the state can do, just what they're doing about that. UH's economic research organization's Carl Bonham spoke about that. It was really interesting when I was listening in, because he talks about how he thinks the state maybe should open up in segments, sort of island by island, rather than this one big open gate. Let's hear what he has to say.
Though obviously those case counts are declining sort of more apparently on Oahu and less so on the Big Island in Maui with some of the recent outbreaks. So one thing that I'm asking and encouraging is that we think about this on an island by island basis and not by a statewide basis. So if Oahu is ready, it meets targets, that we begin to open that island first, or any island. It could be Kauai also. And then the other thing is that in terms of working out the plans that are necessary. So for example, the investment that's necessary for contact tracing, the number of people that need to be hired and trained and the facilities, all of that's going to take a fairly long period of time. And I'm wondering if we can prioritize certain parts of this planning process so that we have those investments in place as early as possible. So if we meet targets, we can begin to do phased reopening rather than still waiting on those investments and that planning when an opening becomes possible.
All right, that was just a little bit from that hearing going on this morning, and some of you may have seen the reports out there. The Star Advertiser reporting that David Ige has said that he probably will extend that stay-at-home order past April 30th. He has a press conference coming up at 2:30 that you'll be anchoring here from our studio, so we'll have to wait and see what he says, but obviously a lot of people waiting for that update there.
That wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah, I think people are sort of expecting it, and that's sort of the vibe of that hearing this morning as well. All right, some new rules went into effect today.
That's right. Starting today, you are now required to wear a cloth face mask in most public places here on Oahu. Casey Lund has the details.
New addition to the original emergency proclamation for the city and county of Honolulu went into effect at midnight this morning, and essentially means that you will have to wear a face mask like this and you go into any essential business. This also includes, of course, while riding the bus and handy van. The Department of Transportation Services has already made big changes to the way they operate in response to COVID-19. There is a new red zone aboard the bus where no standing or sitting is allowed to give drivers some extra space. The department is eventually going to install physical barriers as well to provide more separation from the driver and the rest of the riders on the bus. Now on Friday, you're seeing video of DTS along with the group Everyone Hawaii handing out face masks at bus stops ahead of the new rule going into effect, but they've been working to protect riders and drivers for a while now.
Since January, our public transit vehicles have undergone extended cleaning to high-touch areas such as doors, seats, and grab rails. We're also using electrostatic cleaning procedures on board each vehicle every night to ensure as clean as possible an environment before these vehicles and vans enter service each day.
Ridership on the bus has gone down considerably from around 200,000 riders every day to around 60,000 per day. DTS says despite this change, they've actually added some routes to provide better service and allow for proper social distancing. You know, there are some exceptions to the wearing a mask rule. First responders, that it affects their ability to do their duties. People with pre-existing medical conditions where it affects their ability to breathe correctly. Children under 5 as well are exempt from that rule. We'll send it back to you in the studio for now.
More state workers begin training today to help with the state's historic number of unemployment claims. If all goes well in training, they can start processing claims by Wednesday. An intake hub for claims has been set up at the Hawaii Convention Center. Officials say volunteers all have to be state workers based on Oahu. That's because some of the work involves private financial records on state-owned computers. We're going to hear from the head of the State Labor Department, Scott Murakami, as well as Governor Ige.
The plan is to have 1,000 people man that center over the next week and a half. We learned that there are approximately 200,000 pending claims at the unemployment office. So we are going to be tasking these 1,000 workers to process the 200,000 claims.
It's all hands on deck effort. We recognize that this, unemployment benefits clearly is a lifeline to those who were laid off.
And that was actually House Speaker Scott Saiki and not Scott Murakami there at the beginning. Now, officials say volunteers need to bring their state ID badges and should only show up at the convention center after receiving a confirmation email. We're told a second intake center will likely be set up as operations get up to speed.
All right, let's take a look at Wall Street right now. We've got the numbers down there on the Dow, down 2.44%. That's the numbers are now under 24,000, but they were riding there above there for a couple of days. That's because of the collapse of the oil markets. We've seen that news unfolding all morning. Today, the price of oil plunged, falling below zero to close at negative $37.63 a barrel. We also want to get to some other news that's still developing out there internationally. We're talking about that devastating shooting in Canada.
Yes, the death toll is still rising in a mass shooting in Canada that has left residents in shock. 19 people are now dead after a man opened fire in Nova Scotia over the weekend, and it happened while people were on lockdown during the pandemic. Nancy Chen has more on the investigation.
Investigators are still working to unravel what happened over the weekend in rural Nova Scotia, about 60 miles north of Halifax. But why a man opened fire on his neighbors and strangers still remains unclear.
It appears that some of the victims were known to the suspect and others were targeted and not known to the suspect.
Police have identified the gunman as 51-year-old Gabriel Wortman, who lived part-time in the area. He reportedly made dentures. Police say he first shot people at their homes late Saturday and set a handful of buildings on fire. The shooting spree ended at this gas station about 30 miles away after a nearly 12-hour pursuit. Investigators say Wortman was wearing a police uniform or an exact copy of one and was driving what looked like a police vehicle.
Members are currently at 16 crime scenes in Portapique and other communities in central and northern Nova Scotia to gather evidence and learn more about what occurred at each scene.
Police say Wortman is dead but did not reveal how he died. One of his victims was Royal Mounted Canadian Police Constable Heidi Stevenson, a 23-year veteran of the force and mother of two.
The impact of this incident will extend from one end of the province to the other.
The crime left the community stunned. Mass shootings are rare in Canada.
When stuff like this happens, we got to rally together as people and loved ones in the community.
It's the deadliest shooting attack in the country's history. Nancy Chen, CBS News.
Now back to the pandemic. Singapore and India have announced their biggest single-day spikes in new COVID-19 cases as the crisis intensifies in parts of Asia. India's increase came after the government eased one of the world's strictest lockdowns to allow some manufacturing and agricultural activity to resume. The country reported more than 1,500 new cases, raising its total past 17,000. Singapore's confirmed cases shot above 8,000 after more than 1,400 new infections were reported today, mostly among foreign workers. Now, Singapore now has the highest number of cases in Southeast Asia.
Everyone saw all that panic buying happen at the beginning of this pandemic, or when we really started to take it seriously. Some of those products have returned to the shelves. You might be able to find more soaps, hand sanitizer, things like that. But one thing's still missing from a lot of places: toilet paper. And Naomi Ruckham explains why.
Shelves usually filled with paper products remain empty, and many stores continue to limit how much you can purchase.
When people see this kind of scarcity, it's like, I don't want to run out. Let me buy some extra just in case.
Harvard professor Willie Shih says hoarding is a major reason toilet paper is scarce. Sales doubled in mid-March, according to the market research firm IRI.
The problem is that this gets kind of out of control, and the manufacturers, and particularly the truckers and the logistics companies, have to keep up with this.
But Americans are not only buying out of panic, they actually need more. People are no longer going to the restroom at school or work. While we're home 24/7, toilet paper maker Georgia Pacific estimates we're using 40% more. You can find calculators that tell you just how much TP you'll need. This one estimates a 4-person household will go through 20 rolls in about 16 days. And with retailers running low, consumers are now turning to industrial suppliers.
With the onset of the crisis, most of our customers now are residential consumers.
Rich Hebert is the CEO of CleanItSupply.com, which sells those giant rolls to businesses. While there are smaller sizes, much of it sold out, and what's left ships by the carton.
Now, a carton has 96 rolls. As long as they're willing to buy it in bulk and have a place to store it, we can satisfy their needs.
TP makers have increased production, but it could be several weeks before stores can add more stock. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
I went to Safeway and Long's yesterday. There was toilet paper there, but they didn't have hand soap.
I'm still seeing empty shelves at the toilet paper section too. I'm down to 5 rolls, folks.
Oh, boy.
And I borrowed those. I had to get those on loan.
Oh, man.
So, all right, they were out enforcing this weekend, right?
Yep, DLNR and Honolulu police were enforcing beach closures around Oahu this weekend. On Friday, Governor David Ige ordered all state beaches to close. You can only cross the beach to get to the water for surfing, swimming, or other activities, but social distancing still applies. Officers were warning beachgoers of the new rules that prevent lounging and exercising on the beach. The DLNR also says some of its officers wrote citations, but they didn't say exactly how many.
All right, we're going to go now to our newest segment here. This is now, it's called Checking In, where we're just checking in with folks from around town and around the state. Today we're looking at another nonprofit, Big Brothers Big Sister. Our big brother himself, Casey Lunn, filed this story.
Dennis, tell me just first off how things have been going with the organization. I know this is a challenging time for everybody. And when you think about the connections people have with their family and their kapuna who may be trapped in a nursing home and you can't communicate, it's difficult for us to stay in touch. How is Big Brothers Big Sisters working to kind of maintain the relationship between mentors and mentees during this time?
Well, you're right. It is a really challenging time, and relationships are so important. Typically, we've always been proud of the fact that we were able to bring people together physically in person and to enjoy activities and to go out. And of course, we can't do that now. We don't want to do that because we want everybody to be safe. And to our pleasant surprise, though, all of our families, our bigs and littles, big brothers, little brothers, big sisters, little sisters, big couples and their little brother, little sister have really embraced and taken to, I think they're having a lot of fun with actually connecting virtually. And there is a tiny percentage of our caseload, of our people we serve who don't have access to go virtual. And being an older guy myself, I remember the days of what we used to call pen pals. And we used to write letters to each other. And you'd have people across the country even, that you do that with. So we've made that available. We've having bigs and littles send cards, postcards, or even letters to each other. And that can be powerful as well. So it's really great to see them connecting even more often than they used to when they were going physically on outings.
Aside from just FaceTiming, how they're able to connect digitally, there's been some pretty cool things that they've done.
Yeah, I'm not as privy to all of the things that they've been doing, but I know we've provided them a lot of tools, as many as we can. They've been playing games, they've been connecting online to play video games. We've given them some tools and some exercises they can do and fun things. I just found one the other day from my own daughter's school where they asked people, they're very simple, just draw a picture or write some words on a piece of paper that you can hold up to your friend or mentor and say, just expressing how you're feeling right now. And for the younger children especially, that's really important. Some of them are angry. They're mad they can't go to school. They're mad they can't see their friends. They can't go to the beach, can't go outside. Some are sad. Most of them just don't understand. I mean, you try to explain it as best you can. They get it. There's something bad going on, that why we have to do this. But I mean, after weeks, it starts to get old. And so, but just that act of holding it up, and then that kind of starts a conversation, starts a discussion.
All right, a lot of good organizations still doing great work.
Yeah, and having to adapt and still carrying on. Yeah, like last week we talked to Make-A-Wish, and that virtual fundraiser's coming up. Can't wait to see your talent.
This Wednesday. Awesome. All right, Hawaiian Airlines is bringing 2 million face masks to Hawaii. The company is working with the nonprofit Everyone Hawaii, and they sent an Airbus to China to pick up the shipment. The lower deck crew rest modules were removed to make room for more masks. The aircraft is expected to return to Honolulu tomorrow.
All right, a former First Lady has started a new reading campaign, and a large meat processing plant has halted operations for a day. Chris Martinez has a wrap of today's headlines.
The Tyson Fresh Meats plant in Perry, Iowa is closed today for a deep cleaning. The company says the temporary shutdown is an added precaution on top of measures already taken to stay ahead of the coronavirus. Tyson has not said how many workers at the plant have tested positive for COVID-19. At a Tyson plant in Tennessee, there are at least 90 confirmed cases. After some backlash, Shake Shack is returning a $10 million government small business loan. The burger chain says it has obtained new funding and wants the money to go to restaurants that need it the most.
I'm delighted to share today's book, The Gruffalo.
Former First Lady Michelle Obama is doing her part to keep kids occupied during the pandemic. She's reading classic children's books online every Monday at noon for the next 4 weeks. And if you're looking for exercise, you might want to try rooftop tennis. These teens in Italy really have game, lobbing shots from one roof to another. And don't worry, if one of them happens to miss, a parent retrieves the ball. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
That takes skill.
That looks
oh my goodness,
really fun.
Yeah, I've never been good at tennis at all, so the balls would just go straight off the building there. All right, another phenomenon that's taking place here because of the pandemic and across the world is that animals are beginning to come out where we haven't always seen them before, sort of getting a little familiar with the new neighborhoods as more people stay at home. Ian Lee shows us how the new residents are moving in.
New life for the world's most endangered sea turtle. Leatherback hatchlings are returning to Thailand's empty beaches, the largest spawn in nearly 20 years, all thanks to the coronavirus lockdown. Around the globe, Mother Nature is reclaiming her space. In Lebanon, hundreds of millions of birds migrate through every year. But now, there's something different. This farmer says, we are seeing species of small birds for the first time. I don't know what's happening in nature, but it's a good thing. In Kenya, a lion relaxes on a bench in the Masai Mara Reserve. A pack of pachyderms clog a road in southern India, while there's a new king of the urban jungle in Adelaide, Australia. And in northern Italy, this hungry fellow was looking for the bare necessities. But not all appreciate the new neighbors.
During the corona crisis now, it's becoming more and more terrifying because animals, as you know, carrying disease.
In Haifa, Israel, wild boars got quite boorish exploring abandoned spaces. But for now, while the humans are away, the animals will stay. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
Actor Tom Hanks is opening up about what it was like to have COVID-19. Hanks said he was wiped out by the virus, saying he experienced serious body aches and fatigue. He says his wife, Rita Wilson, had much more severe symptoms such as nausea, high fever, and that she had to crawl on the floor at times. The couple was in Australia when they contracted the virus. They are both now back in Los Angeles.
All right, back here at home, I got some video I want to show you, and for our podcast listeners, we'll do our best to describe it to you. Take a look at this. Researchers at UH are getting a rare up-close look at baby humpback whales. They put this non-invasive suction cup tag onto 7 calves, and that's off Maui. Those tags are equipped with cameras, acoustic recorders, and depth sensors. The data will help researchers see how close and how the calves interact with their mothers, and they'll track nursing habits. But check that out. That's really up-close stuff there. We've posted this to our Facebook page if you want some more in-depth look at this, and I think we talked to some of the researchers as well, and we have that information posted as well.
Very cool.
Very, very cool.
Meanwhile, 2 Oahu emergency room nurses on the front line of the pandemic originally were planning to get married this past Friday. Obviously, they had to postpone their wedding, but they still ended up with a sweet surprise. Lisa Kubota has their story.
Laura Wetherell and Nicholas Laniauskas got engaged in December 2018. Now they're both on the front lines as nurses in the emergency room at the Queens Medical Center.
But we definitely have been seeing sicker people lately. So it's kind of scary.
About 6 weeks ago, they decided to delay their ceremony. Surprise! They had no idea that more than 20 of their family members and friends had planned a virtual reception on their original wedding night.
They texted us and kind of pitched out a game night idea on Zoom. So we're like, okay, we're down for that. And then we jumped on, and all of a sudden, everybody's dressed up.
Relatives had already dropped off dinner, and a box that the couple later found out contained a wedding cake. They did a cake-cutting ceremony and also enjoyed entertainment provided by some of their friends.
Accolades. Everybody was dressed up. We had decorations.
We had a first dance. There were speeches and toasts.
Definitely emotional. Some of us got teary-eyed, myself included.
They look forward to eventually tying the knot with everyone together. For now, they're just grateful for the joyful celebration they shared with those closest to them.
Still felt the same amount of love, even though we were, in the same room as each other.
I don't know how we're gonna top that. But,
I know.
Last night, but
that was pretty special.
Boomerang? Is it a boomerang?
Now, the couple says they're going to see what happens with the pandemic, but they want to get married maybe later this summer if all goes well.
Oh, we wish them the best. That Zoom looked so fun.
I
There's a
know.
little baby in there and that man wearing the tuxedo on the top. And some guy just scarfing his face full of cake there as well. That looks super fun, and I'm so glad they were able to do something special because they certainly deserve it.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, guys, we have so much coming up for you ahead today on H&N. 2:30